Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, let's begin our session with a wonderful quote. The way to get started is to quit talking and start doing. So, for the starting a new chapter of learning, I, Anjali Kushwaha, being your host for today's event, wants to extend a warm greeting and good evening to all of you present here. I hope you all are doing amazing. On the behalf of whole SEMS family, I welcome you all to our international webinar on Are You a Startup? Things to know. And to add our guest of honor and today's speaker, Ms. Swarleen Kaur. It's a great honor to have you with us, ma'am. We are grateful for your presence.
Thank you so much. Thank you for extending that invite, and I'm really honored and glad to be here.
Yes, ma'am. So let me introduce today's speaker to all of you. Swarleen Kaur, a distinguished personality coach, public speaking expert, and startup enabler with a remarkable track record as a three-time TEDx speaker, a speaker at United Nations event, and a dynamic presence at Josh Talk. Her insights are sure to captivate and empower. As a founder director of the Talk Room, the personality school, she has dedicated herself to helping individuals unlock their full potential and enhance the communication skills and cultivate and confident, impactful presence. Her achievements also extend to be a holder of the World Book of London Records, a testament to her excellence and innovation in her field.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. I'm really honored and so glad to be here. And if I can add value to it, nothing better than that. Thank you for offering this particular subject, which is very close to my heart, startups. We all dream of having something of our own, which we can say, this is my possession, this is my property. And I'm sure, after a few years of experience, we always want to get into the zone where, this is mine. And we yearn to do that, isn't it? That's where startup comes. But with startups, there are a lot of other skills apart from your education, apart from your formal studies, which have to be kept in mind. So let me quickly start this journey today. Before starting that, I would just like to have a show of hands. How many of us really want to be entrepreneurs? How many of us do we want to, start our own startups? Thank you, Soni Tiku. That's amazing. And you could just let me know in your chat, what kind of startup do you think you can open up? That'll be really nice. And hope that, I can help you with the same. So, before I start and I take you into this journey of startups, it's important that we talk about why a startup. Why do we need to have this startup? Now, the first thing is it will always be by choice. So if you think you want to be a startup or you're a startup, you must know these little hacks that I'm going to talk about today. Well, my introduction's been done, so I'm not going to take a lot of time on this. What is a startup? A completely newly established business which aims to bring in a lot of innovations, right? And that's where I said skills, the requirement of the skills. When you aim to bring innovative products, services, solutions to the market. Unlike those traditional businesses, what is the difference between a startup and how we can differentiate it from the point of business? Startups often prioritize that rapid growth. They often talk about the disruption of the industries and the potential of scaling. And that's why it's startup. And of course, a lot of incubators and accelerators help you to take this journey forward. Now, a lot of people ask me this question: does startup has anything to do with critical thinking, with a lot of decision making? Yes, certainly. As you go ahead, as you move forward, it's important that you understand that this journey is, again, I would say, completely based on your skills as well. So what are the differentiating factors from other businesses? The very first is innovation. Startups are generally known for introducing those innovative ideas, technologies, approaches to address the existing problems or needs. So I remember in my incubator, when I talk about the incubator is a space which it's a body which gives you maximum help when you are in the ideation stage. When you have an innovative idea, you go to an incubator, they'll help you with the incubation process, how to develop your business, how to create your business model, how to help you with your value proposition, your go-to-market strategy, your audience, where are you going right, where do you go wrong. So when you're addressing these existing problems, what kind of problems? So there was a student from, who was from IIT. He came to us at our incubator and he asked me, I want to make drones. So we said, a lot of people are doing that. What is it that you want to do it differently? So he had his own USP, and that was he was doing it with on the hydrogen basis, which was quite economical. One. Second, it would take less time. So he innovated something and he got funded as well. Second is scalability. As I said, startups, they want to grow quickly and efficiently, in fact. So often this potential to expand to a larger market or a global audience that helps. Now, there is a difference between, do you want to be an entrepreneur or you still are an intrapreneur? So what is the difference between an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur? When you think you want to start with your own business, when you want to start with your own startup, when you're ready to take that risk, when you're ready to face those uncertainties, then it's a startup, then you are an entrepreneur. Intrapreneur is not ready to take risk as of now. So it's in that thinking process, in that dilemma. And there are a lot of e-cells. E-cells are entrepreneurship cells, maybe in a university, and some universities are open that, it's not important that you need to be a student or a faculty for the same. And there are a lot of incubators who take people who just want to get into e-cell, just to study how startups work. So we have a lot of them. Startups typically operate in the environment of uncertainty. Why? Because you're innovating something. You're bringing that change, right? You want that quick scalability. People say, it took us years to make a business. And how do you think, right? There was a father-son duo. Now, father had this huge traditional business and wanted his son to join this. But the son, who was typically an innovative student, he was not eager to be a part of it. He said, no, I want to bring innovation to what you're doing. And finally, he started working differently from what his father was doing and finally integrated his father's business. So that's the scale a startup can attain. And today it's a 200 CR plus funded startup. So startups are ready to face that risk related to market acceptance, the competition, the funding, the competition is a lot of people have a lot of innovative ideas and funding is one difficult part. Until and unless the investor is not satisfied, they may not take your startup to be funded. Well, we're going to talk later in the stages. Flexibility. Startups are agile. They're open to pivoting their strategies based on the challenges, the market feedback, the circumstances which are changing quite frequently. So I have a few examples for you here. Years back, we did not know what Airbnb was. We did not know it could be a ride-sharing service, revolutionizing the transportation. Yes, you're right, Uber. We never knew there was SpaceX. There could be SpaceX was out of question. It was founded to reduce the space transportation costs, right? So the colonization of the Mars, SpaceX has disrupted the aerospace industry with the reusable rockets, ambitious goals. Netflix. You people have stopped watching movies in the cinema halls. Many of you don't do it. Why? Because you're happy with your Netflix. It completely transitioned from a DVD to a streaming platform, fundamentally changing the entire history of the cinema. Tesla, quite a pioneer in vehicles, electric vehicles, renewable energy. So these innovations are few examples which proves that startup industry is in demand. It is growing every day. What you have to do is think out of the box. But the story does not end here. You've got to think out of the box, take action, let it come into the execution, and get the right kind of advice and get the right kind of people connected to you who may help you with the same. So it's important that you, as a person, if you have thought of that I will be doing a startup, then just look at right in the middle of the dark. Things will certainly happen. These are just a few examples. You have a lot of them, isn't it? It is all about ideas. It is all about your out of box thinking. It is all about being innovative. Why? Because as I said in my first slide, innovation is the foundation. It's the key that drives the entire creation of new products. Maybe it is a product industry, a service industry, or a business model. So I'll tell you, when I wanted to start with my own startup 4 years back, there were a lot of people who said startups as in service industry, and that too for soft skills. It's not a good idea. I did not give up. The drive the determination, the dedication that you have for your business, you have to think out of the box. So somebody told me, what is soft skills going to do with the new AI ideas? So finally, what I did was I got soft skills married to AI. The story was innovative enough. My entire sessions were AI based. My entire sessions were based on new technologies. I took the help of new softwares, and startup just flourished like anything. Your ideas will always fuel your uniqueness. It will help you stand out in the competitive market, attract the kind of audience you are looking for, and above all, you'll get your investors right there in the market because they are hunters who want to invest in somebody who is good enough at thinking different. Not only this, ideas like these, they encourage the creative thinking, problem solving. So you come out with a problem, you come out with a gap in startup, and finally you meet the needs or solve the complex problems. So problem solving skills again helps in navigating the challenges. Again, I would like to give you an example. I've already given you a few. Airbnb, Uber, Stripe is again one of. Now there are a lot of questions that students come or candidates come up to me. Ma'am, he also has the same idea and I also have the same idea. What if my idea does not work? What if he copies? That's a big, roadblock. It's a mental block in our minds, but you have to think about it. If it is Make My Trip, or if it is Ease My Trip, or if it is Booking.com, all are doing the same thing. All of them are working. Yet, if there are 2 or 3 startups like these, which top the charts, what is it that they are doing exclusive? What is it that they are doing what others are not doing? It's all about ideas. It's all about problem solving, right? Similarly, Stripe, right? Simplifying the online payments. So other than Stripe, you all know it. How many other portals do we have for online payments? If you know some, please do mention them in the chat box. I'll be happy to know about your ideas. It revolutionized the entire e-commerce landscape. CRISPR Therapeutics, pioneer in gene editing technology, treating those genetic disorders people thought that they would not be able to treat. Impossible Foods, plant-based meat alternatives. We would have never thought of it. It's all because of the innovation. It's all because of the ideas that we have, right? It's important to understand that whatever you think, right? Whatever idea you have in mind, you stick on to it. Your way of doing it may change. Your business model can change. Idea remains there. Because here you are identifying market gaps. You're picking up the customer pain point. People did not want to go to the hotels. There was Airbnb. People did not want to go and stand in the long queues of banks. Online portals were there. Things started to become easy to the easier and now to the easiest. Successful startups, they say, are born from unmet needs and gaps in the market. So the first thing that you look into is where does the gap lie? You're identifying the customer's pain points. You're identifying the challenges because For this, you conduct a market research. Successful startups, where I said they have to meet, they recognize that these needs were unmet. That's where I can start with my own thing. You have to go back, you have to do your research, you have to understand where the problem lies. Pick out that problem and talk about it. You have to think how the market works. What are the latest trends? What is the potential demand? Where can I fit in? This competitive analysis will help you to be different and offer your product in a different way, wherein you also have a greater area of improvement. So I know this startup, which is doing pretty well. What is he doing is the harmful emissions coming out of the industries. He's trying to trap that with his scientific, he's an engineer, with his scientific technique, and he has been approved. His project has been approved by a lot of startup governments. So startup Uttarakhand has helped him. Has helped him. He's been incorporated there. You have to understand what does a customer need and what is he not getting. Because when you look into your audience, why are customer centric startups better? Because when you look into the startups, in fact, the audience based startups, they build better bases because they understand where the gap is. It addresses the high cost of, things, and how can you reduce it down. So why Parker? It addressed the high cost of eyeglasses by offering the affordable, stylish eyewear on. Tesla, it identified the need of sustainable transportation and developed the electric cars. People are going crazy for electric cars, and they're also lurking, in outer countries. We see there are a lot of electric stations. That's where the innovation comes from. You have to identify where can you scale, right? We always say that you've got to create your business model. It's important that you have your business model ready. What are those key elements on which you will create your business model? The very first is customer segment identification. This is the stage where you identify these different groups of people or organization that are your audience. Search for your audience in the market. Before taking a very hush step, think, what is the right audience for me? Where can I sell my product? Let's imagine you are standing in an auditorium and you want to speak, you want to deliver a speech, but there's nobody to listen to you. You will feel like a failure. Similarly, when you think about audience, where I want to sell it, think like a salesman. If you are the perfect salesman, you will sell it. Think like that. Think about the value proposition. What is that is unique in your product? What is it that is what the services that you want to reach to your customer? What is it that you're doing differently? What is Swiggy doing? What is Zomato doing? They have made lives so much easier. They have solved a problem. Even if at midnight you need something, it will be delivered right at your footstep. That is the uniqueness. Create that uniqueness in your product or in your services. Outline how you are going to reach to them. How are you going to communicate with your customers? Because communication is the only gap, is the only bridge that will gap your differences. Try to find out those channels. Is it through verbal, mouth publicity? Is it through social media? Is it through a door-to-door research? Is it through a survey? How you will reach them? How can you best put up your product in front of them? And once you've done that, it is important. It's very important that you build that relationship. But what is difficult is to maintain that relationship. People will forget all the good that you did. They will never forget one bad thing that came from you. So they will start writing a lot of comments on your websites and your online portals, bad delivery, bad service. You have to keep on being consistent, defining the type of relationship you intend to establish with them. And this relationship has to go a long way. right? You have to think about how are you going to generate your revenue? What will be the revenue? How your startup will generate that income from each customer segment you're looking for? What are the assets that you are requiring to deliver your uniqueness? Completely describing the core tasks. So your startup must perform to deliver. Delivery is very important. You may have a lot of goals, you may have a lot of unique elements, but until and unless the delivery is not right, it may not serve the purpose. So identify those external organization or resources that will help your startup succeed. And definitely outlining the fixed and the variable costs associated with operating your startup. So whenever you are trying to build your model of your startup, keep these points in mind. Because customer, right from your customer to the uniqueness that you have, to the relationship that you build, to thinking about where your revenue is going to come from, what are the key elements, where does this originate from, what will be the cost structure, what will be your fixed and variable cost, so that it works pretty well and pretty simple. So these pointers in making your BMC will always, we call it as BMC, the business model canvas. So let's say the example of an Apple app store, right? We all use Apple phones, we use the app store. The customer segments is what? The app developers, the users, very easy distribution for the developers, just to access the diverse apps for users. Online platforms through Apple devices, customer relationship, self-service for app discovery, downloading, revenue streams. Now, Apple this way, revenue share from app sales and in-app purchases gives it a lot of revenue other than selling their phones. That generates that the major. So when you talk about from where the revenue is generated, your one revenue is your bread and butter revenue. And the other revenue is, this is my niche client. So that niche client for the Apple is the phone. But the bread and butter is what comes from app sales and app purchase. So app hosting infrastructure, developer tools, they are the key resources to this. Now they have to maintain that platform, isn't it? If they don't do that, how are we going to review the process? Payment processes, what is the cost structure? People say that, app costs us so much, but then still you go for it. Why? Because you understand it is about value addition, right? So what value addition we are doing to the customer will definitely play a great role in deciding, is it worth it? Building your team. No successful startup, you will find out, does not have a team. Every good startup has a team of its own. Build your team. So whether it's a founder, it's a co-founder. Now there are a lot of queries which people come to us with. They ask us, who is the right person to be the co-founder? Even your mentor could be your co-founder. Generally, in the case of young adults who are university pass outs or who want to join the university, after university, they want to, in fact, in their programs only, they start their startups. A lot of people make their mentors as the co-founders so that they get the right kind of guidance. No person is all man's person. You've got to understand this. It is important if, let's say, it's your startup. So you become your own accountant, you become your own computer person, you become your own HR, you become your own delivery man, you become your own everything to say that. You are here to delegate. You are here to understand what is the requirement and why do I need my team. You are here to distribute. You've got to understand the significance, what a strong and diverse team can do, right? I cannot be a master of all. So now, a lot of people ask this question, how do we give them those salaries? Where do we pay them from? If we've got to hire them, as simple as that. You can pick up some interns who are ready to work because they also need exposure. They are also in the process of learning and making. You could divide the funds, the revenue, as it is a fixed and a variable cost, I said. Think where you want the team to be at the most. if you don't have a digital marketing team in this at this point of time. A lot of young startups come to us that, ma'am, we want somebody for our marketing and branding. So we give them a lot of interns. All right, that's fine. We'll help you with the same. Don't worry. Understand the importance of who's going to handle my finance, who is going to be my branding and expert, who can be my co-founder, who can be my mentor, could be from any part of the world. How does it even matter? Right? The understanding has to be there. You have to understand this person is what I need. Founders. You have started your own startup. So definitely you become the one who's initiated the entire drive, isn't it? So you are the startup. You are the founder of your own startup with a strong passion for the problem that you wanted to solve. Now, let's say I cannot be good at everything, as I said. If you see a lot of industries, if you have ever visited China or if you have ever read the articles or designed something, you may know that even in China, if they have to compile the entire scooter, different small products, they are manufactured in different areas. That becomes their niche, their expertise. So you've got to understand, if my product is technical, I need to have engineers. I need to have developers. I need to have that kind of a tech specialist for my product development, for the innovation. It's absolutely okay. Even if you have an idea, you can become a founder of the startup. Delegate that role of technicalities to somebody else, and you could make the other person as your co-founder. Marketing and sales, very important. No business is going to scale without a sale. So your entire responsibility, acquiring customers for you, driving revenue for you, you could give it to somebody. The operations. Now, managing day-to-day activities. A lot of people say, we don't need people because it's okay. I can manage it on my own. But as your startup starts to grow, it's important that managing your day-to-day activities, your logistics, your smooth operations, you've got to hire somebody, and definitely finance. Different people come up with the problem that I do not have any understanding of the legal aspects. When should I file my trademarks, my IPRs? How do I get my company registered? You could take a help of somebody who's in the legal entity. You don't need to make a team or give a role in the company, but of course, he could build up as your team who's outsourced and yet helping you. Finance expert. They are definitely going to be your key person. We're going to handle your financial planning, your accounting, your fundraising efforts. Now, if I ask you how you are starting a startup and how much funds do you need, you cannot be telling to your investor somewhere around so and so, because the investor is going to come and ask you a question. How did you come to this conclusion? And how do you know that this and this has a gap of 5 lakhs, say 1 lakh also? Then what? You've got to have somebody in the finance team, and it's important to have a design and user experience who take that responsibility for ensuring a user-friendly and a visually appealing product or a service. So that makes your team. The need of the people concerned could vary from product to product, service to service. That does not mean, if I've not mentioned a few people here, you may need them. You may need somebody else in that expertise. I know a startup who's working on the grounds of how they can simplify a lawyer's life. Now, everybody knows lawyers have a lot of material to read. Now, this startup is working to help the lawyers get their things arranged, looking into their legal aspects, their cases all sorted. Wonderful software. Again, it's their idea. They may not need a technical person, an engineer for that, but they may need somebody who could be good at operations. So it would definitely vary from person to person who you need to be in the system, where you can help the person, where you can build that strong team. The significance of a strong and diverse team here comes in place. A very important tool is value proposition canvas. A very important tool which will help startups design their products or services that will match the needs of the customer. So what does it do? As the name suggests, it focuses on understanding what the customer wants from you and how, as a startup, you can offer to fulfill what their requirement is. What is it that you need in value proposition? First, explanation of customer jobs, their pains and gains, and product services fit. Identifying the tasks, identifying the problems, identifying the needs customers are trying to address. Why? Because you are there to help them. You are there to solve their problems. Because you've got to first understand where is the pain point? Where are they so challenged? What are the negative experiences the customer is facing? You have to make sure that you understand this to ensure that your customer, whatever hindrances, obstacles he has been facing, you help them achieve their goals. Your basic gains are what is the positive outcome, what is the benefit, what is the desire, looking into the desire of your customer. So your positive outcomes, the benefits that you are giving to them, the desires that your customers want you to achieve, right? That's important. Make sure that you recognize what is the satisfaction your customer is getting from your product. If you do not give them that satisfaction, they're not satisfied. Your purpose, your whole soul purpose of starting your startup and not being able to fulfill their demands, their problems will will give a negative impact on your start. So you have to be very sure of what services or products, what desired results you're giving to them. You have to recognize as a startup what is motivating your customer. So when Swiggy came out with their own perspective of giving the food deliveries, gradually it also shifted to Swiggy Genie. You're not available. Nobody has time these days. We'll help you. We'll sit along with you and we'll make it happen. Recognize where the gap lies, right? Where does your service fit in, the product fit in the best? How you can actually take out those pain points from your customer and help them achieve those gains, right? It's important that you ensure it is for them. If somebody says, oh, it's a personalized product for you, you feel happy, you feel all the more important. You feel that, oh, it's for me. You feel that importance, you feel that happiness, that this is specifically for me. Get into that specificity. Ensure that you are able to cater to the specific need of your customer. And if you do so, it really elevates your startup. It gives you that satisfaction. Now, the question lies is, I have started my startup. Where do I get these grants? How do I create that pitch wherein the investors want to come, listen to me and invest in me? We've discussed that it has to be somewhat different. It has to be somewhat giving answers to the solution. Solutions have to be there to the problems. How can I do it? All of us in our childhood have been hearing of stories. Your pitch has to be engaging. The importance of creating the best pitch takes a lot of your effort, takes a lot of your patience and perseverance. And trust me, an engaging pitch will always capture the attention, the interest of your investor as well as your customer. How do I do this pitching? How do I make sure that whatever I'm trying to sell, whatever I'm trying to create through my startup is well understood? The answer to the questions is create an excellent pitch for yourself. A very well crafted story. It makes your startup memorable and persuasive. So if you remember, all those who've watched, things, ads like Surf Excel, Daag achhe hain, stains are good. It was a story. When people were saying stains are not good, stains are bad, they crafted the story just the opposite, which nobody could say. Stains are good. Daag achhe hain. Why? Because they knew that their product is going to solve this problem. They grabbed the attention. They took the attention of the audience, and there they are in the market. What is it that compels your investors? What compels your customers to understand that you are the right fit is the pitch. They say a way to somebody's heart is through stomach. So a way to your investor, to your customer is the kind of compelling, persuasive, authenticated kind of pitch that you will create. And how are you going to create this pitch? Creating a pitch deck is not that difficult, right? You have to understand. See, everything that we talk about in startup is first defining the problem, picking up the pain point, and right away giving them the solution through your product or service. That's the key element, even in the storytelling pitch deck. Highlight the target market size and potential. Show them that you have team. Now, here is where your team again comes in place. I remember in this one of the funding programs for AI, a person with a superb idea lost it because he did not have team. That's the importance of team when you ask for funds, when you raise funds. That's the importance of co-founders. People, investors invest more for who have teams, who have co-founders, maybe 2 or 3 in fact, because they understand that the team is going to showcase the expertise and the passion. Give them in every pitch that you do. And as I was telling you, in your team, make sure that you have somebody from finance, because providing a high level overview of your startup's financials. Where is it that you're standing? How much have you been able to generate? How are you a revenue generating startup? The first question that comes is, are you a revenue generating startup? And if so, what is your revenue, right? So you have to be very particular with these details in your pitch deck. Share the traction, maybe some milestones, some achievements to demonstrate progress. I think everybody has heard of Chai Sutta Bar or MBA Chai Wala. So Chai Sutta Bar, this boy has outlets in almost 7 to 8 countries or maybe more than that. A yearly revenue of 200 CRs plus. Never ever taken up a funding. And yet we look up to his startup. He has milestones. The last time I met him, he told me that, I've been offered a space in Dubai Mall, and you understand what kind of brands Dubai Mall has. So that's a milestone for him. That's an achievement for him to demonstrate. Show your progress in the pitch deck. Even if you've made little revenue, talk about it. Where you think that next, even if something is in pipeline, talk about it. But it is important that you follow the 7 C's of communication whenever you are pitching yourself. You have to be correct, no wrong data. You have to be cohesive, you have to be coherent, you have to be concise, you have to be courteous. You have to keep these in mind, because the more, sometimes, more, less is more. So you don't have to talk a lot about it. Let your work speak. Present yourself in such a way that you say less, describe more in less words. Use a lot of visuals, lot of anecdotes, lots of case studies from the work that you've been doing. Talk a lot of things about the pain points that you grabbed. Talk about the real world examples to enhance your storytelling. Pitch narrative is not fantasy storytelling. Talk about your story. Talk about how you grew. Talk about how you thought about this plan. So there's a startup which similar on the lines of Physics Wala or somebody. Now he said, while he was doing his grads, or while he was in a senior school, he could not find relevant answers to a lot of questions because it had nothing to do with the syllabus. So now what he did, he innovated some physics ideas wherein everything is happening through AI and people can experience that virtual experience. So that's a very captivating pitch narrative. That's his USP. That's his value proposition. Speak less. Make emphasis on the most impactful points. Use a lot of visuals in your presentations, a lot of anecdotes, a lot of bars, diagrams, a lot of pictorial presentation. So this is going to grab the attention. Connect emotionally with the audience. So they say story selling, storytelling. If you tell your story well, you'll sell your product at the best, because it's all about emotions. The pain points that you're connecting with has a lot of things to do with your emotions. So connect with your audience and show your startup's vision. Make sure that you are in the right direction, right? So how do we do that? Your elevator pitch. Most often, somewhere when you go for your funding, the time limit is to 5 minutes or 7 minutes, 7 to maximum 10 minutes. That attention grabbing. You've all been watching, Shark Tanks. So there's Shark Tank people. They give you that time. They ask you about the problem statement, define the pain point, why you started, why you came up with this idea. Give them a solution. Remember, solution giving is very important. You have to give a solution. What is the market opportunity? Where do you think is the potential market size and growth? What is the competitive landscape? Identify your competitors. Now, please, that's a very important point. Identify who your competitors are. How are they same with you? How they differ from you? What is your unique value? What are you providing which they may not provide? In fast-paced times, we don't see any startup which does not have a competition. When you get into the market, you understand, oh, that's my competitor. But you have to understand, identify those competitors and understand their unique. Where are you unique? What are you giving differently what people are not? Showcase your milestones, your achievements, your feedbacks, and describe how your startup generates revenue. Again, I tell you, people, your investors, your audience is going to ask you, how are you going to generate revenue? Your funders are going to ask you. So make sure in your pitch, you have given answers to these questions. Your high-level financial forecasts are there. If you do this CR business today, how much X you wanted to go ahead, that has to be accurate, almost nearing to accurate. Windfall gains, you'll be happy about it. Clearly state what you're seeking from your investors. You have to tell it to your investors. As I said, you cannot be telling them, oh, I need somewhere around 1 or 2 lakhs. They'll say 1 or 2 lakhs. There's a difference between 1 lakh. How did you come to this conclusion? What made you understand that, it's a 1 or a 2 lakh? Did you not study properly? Don't you know your startup properly? Could be a lot of questions. Why do you think I should invest in you when a lot of competitors are standing? There could be questions which could hit you hard. So go with a lot of preparation. Go with a lot of understanding. Go with a lot of reading. Go with a lot of known and unknown nuances could be there in your startups. Have answers to almost everything. And be very open in telling them if you do not have an answer, tell them we need the mentoring there. We've come here for the same. I need this much funds because that's my projection. Show them the graph, how you want to take it or how you have till now taken it up. So a lot of people, and make sure one thing more, which is very important, is as much as people who are with the product startup, create some kind of a prototype before you go for your pitch deck. It could be a running prototype, or you could just tell them that this is the AI-based prototype. Now I need money. Why do I need funding? I need funding so that I can get this funding and prepare my prototype. Your answers have to be very, very clear. Your answers have to be very, very particular in order to get the funds that you're seeking for. So very, very clear in your idea, what the problem is, the pain point that you've picked up, what solution you are giving, how are you going to give that solution, what is the market opportunity or the market size for you, where do your competitors and your unique value come from, what are the milestones you have or want to achieve, what is your business model, your financial projections, maybe if your prototype is ready, and please ask very clearly what you are seeking from the investors. Be very sharp in telling them. At least to start with your startup. These are some of the important pointers. We could go ahead. There are a lot of legal aspects like IPRs, trademarks, registering of the company, your taxation. So a CA, a good lawyer, they will always help you with that. There could be another issues of how do I build my team? As I said, you could hire some interns, you could hire some freshers, you could think of people who want to start their business and make them co-founders. 1 and 1 is always 11. So think about it. Think very deeply about the business model that you want to create. It's okay if one business model does not work. You could change the trajectory. You could create another business model for you. Make sure that you know what you want. And there's nothing which can stop you from becoming the kind of startup that you want to be. I hope I've tried to pick up the pointers where startups start with. That's just the initial phase of starting a startup. There's a lot of deep and a depth to go with. That's what I wanted to cover in the first stage. Why a startup? How did a startup originate? What are the solutions we can provide? What is my market? Where do I project myself in 5 years? Be prepared with these answers. Question yourself, and you will know the answers by yourself. Thank you so much. And I'm open to questions now.
Wow, that was a very wonderful session given by you, ma'am. I hope our audience learned many new things from the session. And I would like to highlight some of the important points, like for startup, we have to acknowledge ourselves and our requirements, which we want in our startups. So that was very efficient for for our audience. And thank you so much for joining and sharing your experience with your precious time and knowledge with us. So, ma'am, there are a few questions which our audience wants you to be answered. So, shall we?
Sure. Please go ahead.
So the first question is, what features or benefits make our product or service stand out from the existing solutions?
As I said, you've got to see what is unique in your product. What is that even one uniqueness will give you that dimension of standing out from the crowd. Depending on your product, depending on what you want to create, make sure that is where you have to understand what my competitor is doing. You have to stand out by giving them that additional benefit of this. That's where my USP lies. So as I said, a Swiggy or a Zomato does. At your footstep, at the night, in the morning, you ask us, we have it. So you become those solution providers regarding your product to your customer segment, that whatever required in this segment, we stand for you. One USP is going to change the entire dynamics of your startup. So you've got to find out what is that USP, what your competitors are not doing, and how, even if they're doing, how can I do it differently? That is very important. And that's where you start.
Okay, ma'am. The second question is, how will you measure and analyze the performance of the startup?
See, as I said, when you have a team in place, you talk about your financials, you talk about the revenue generation, you talk about the scalability, you talk about from where to where, the projections or the tractions that have been coming your way. Even a single traction, even if you talk about a little achievement that you made, helps the investor understand that it's a progressive startup, right? Your financial projections, your revenue generations have to be very clear. It's important that you know what you are doing. Knowing what you are doing is going to solve a lot of problems, because then your projections regarding your financials, regarding from where you started, so going back and coming back to the point where you want to be, you'll have to dwindle between it and see what's taking you ahead. So always have that clarity in your projections. That's very important.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for answering these questions. And again, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. If you have any additional questions, you can contact us or email us. We're happy to provide you additional support to you. Please follow us on social media platform and subscribe our YouTube channel for new learnings. So stay connected to us for new learning. I, Anjali Kushwaha, your host for the day, signing off. Have a wonderful day, everyone.